Hello, Watem here, and welcome back to some more Umineko When They Cry. I forgot to do the whole config sound things again. You'll hear how much of a difference this causes. It always gets me. Beto and George could be seen in the parlor of a mansion. George was kneeling near Shannon's body as though praying. His face was serious, and there was even sweat on his forehead. Did I start my timer? I don't think... No, I did. Okay, that's good. However, Beatrice was the same. Now that she had handed her name over, most of her previous power had been lost. Of course, she still had more than enough power to be called a witch, but compared to her past, it was a very faint thing.
声をかける。手で触れるな。心の声で呼べ。心の手で求め。そなたの強き思いだけ。シャノンの失われた魂。わらわの魔法を届かせ。
George kept praying earnestly and silently. He kept frantically yelling inside his heart, trying to call back the soul of the person he loved. He strongly envisioned his soul leaving his body and searching for her as she wandered through the land of the dead. But her turned had strong force into magical power that supplemented her own magic. This was magic that, in the past, she could have performed easily, without anyone's help. But now, if she didn't rely on someone's assistance, she wouldn't be able to finish a chant, much less succeed.
数百年近くの魔法と反言とこんなにも辛い魔法であったか。
Beatrice was wearing an even more strained expression than George. It slipped her mind, but originally, the magic to revive her life was the ultimate hidden art. The abnormal thing was her previous magical power, which could be used over and over with a snap of her fingers. So, the heavy burden on her body and mind was, fundamentally speaking, extremely natural.
しかし、小集めの力、魔法を知らぬというのにかなりのもの。なるほど。さすがは金蔵の孫といったところか。
The strong energy pouring from George was large enough to act as magical power. At first, Beatrice thought it must be the blood of Kinzo, a sorcerer. However, that probably wasn't it. She had a feeling the battle had already told her what it was. It had been born from the power of George's sadness at the death of the person he loved, and from the way he had tried his hardest throughout his life. From the warm time spent together with Shannon, to the size of a dream they swore to protect in the future. Is it really possible for humans to take life so seriously, even though they only have a single one? It was only natural, and even more reason to. To her, life didn't mean anything more than the difference between the top and bottom of an Otello piece. If the black represented death, then she thought all you had to do was flip it over again and make it white. However, it was just like that broken vase. To humans in a world without magic, where they cannot return things to their original form, it is very, very natural for them to bet their life and soul. That's all they have going for them.
死の山さえ越えられぬ有限の人間に。
It was time the witch acknowledged it. He was able to hold a magical power that could never reside in witches who didn't understand the value of a life. Why does this thing called the endless magic exist? Endless torment? Even though I called myself the endless witch, did I forget what the endless magic means for 1,000 years? She looked at George's expression again. His surging earnestness was like a lightning bolt. Right now, even if George's body had been burned or smashed by a waterfall, he would probably continue to pray for his beloved without minding it, without noticing it. For the first time, she showed respect for that power. So, in that instant, All magical resistance was lost, and the enormous power of George's feelings turned into magical energy in its complete form. The vase was very beautiful, rich with history and value. Even as young as I was, it still forced me to take a deep breath when I witnessed its beauty. That just made me want to touch it. But the vase easily fell and smashed into pieces, like a bubble that had popped. It felt as though the time it possessed a form had just been an illusion. Lives are just that fragile, just that easily lost. I realized that my foolish curiosity had led to something that couldn't be undone until it was, and then undone. No matter how much I regretted it, no matter how much I apologized, the smashed vase wouldn't return back to its original form. A lost life will not return to normal no matter what happens. I was frightened that, even though my actions had been thoughtless and careless, they had stolen away a life that could never be revived again. Then I pitied that lost life and cried. I was frightened of myself, the one responsible for its loss, and cried even more. I'm sure grandfather will also cry at the loss of his precious vase. I'm sure that all the people who love grandfather and see him like that will cry. With the loss of a single life, the whole world can be filled with so much sadness. I cried even more at how terrible that was. Beatrice appeared and spoke.
ならばお嬢様、この壺を魔法でよみがえらせましょう。それで皆が幸せになれるなら、壺も魔法も精霊たちも喜んでそのために力を貸し、元の姿を取り戻すでしょう。さあさあ、お嬢様、目を閉じて私と一緒にお歌を歌いましょう。さあさあ、目を閉じてごらんなさい。そして思い出してごらんなさい。あなたがどんな姿をしていたのか。それはきっととてもとても美しい姿。どうか私にあの姿をもう一度見せておくれ。
Those words of power knocked forcefully on the door to the land of the dead. The magic of the roll itself had performed that same forceful knock. However, doing it that way was horribly violent, and it turned the displeasure of the peacefully sleeping dead. But this time was different. It was very forceful, and yet gentle and loving. Ooh, that's interesting. The dead near the door opened their eyes, and called out to the others that there was a voice calling for someone to come back. The sadness of that voice calling from the outside touched the hearts of the dead, and, trying to respond as quickly as possible, they searched for Shannon's lost soul. And then they found it. They found the casket in which Shannon was peacefully sleeping. It truly was Shannon's soul, sleeping on the land of the dead. Inside the casket that was covered with rose flowers frozen with frost, she was sleeping in peace. The dead silently lifted that casket up. But at a glance it looked like a funeral march. It had a complete opposite meaning. It was solemn, but filled with joy. The long-forgotten dead were made to remember that they were loved after their deaths, and they were all given a warm sense of peace. Then, as though guided by a warm light from the heavens, Shannon's body floated up out of the casket. The dead watched her go. They squinted at that warm light, offering their respect to this unknown member of the living, who had not lost his love for a person even after their death. Shannon's body was enveloped in the light from the heavens and began to disappear. In the jet black darkness of the land of the dead, the faint flickering of gold butterflies could be seen. It reminded them of the gentle stars in the night sky, which they had long forgotten. George remembered being told that he must not say anything, and he hurriedly covered his mouth. However, it felt like his heart was trying to jump into his throat, because he had seen Shannon's eyelids shake slightly. Interesting. Then, his eyelids slowly opened. Shannon's eyes were there, but they were still wrapped in the fog of the land of the dead. However, the human world's warmth, no, her lover's warmth, which had called back her soul, slowly dissolved that fog, and her eyes gradually regained their sparkle. Then, her eyes moved and recognized George.
Georgie-san.
Her lips shook weakly. Shannon definitely said that. The words were very faint, so much so that they normally wouldn't have reached his ears. However, George clearly heard them. He heard the person he cared for, his fiancée, the one he loved most and who should have been dead, call his name once again.
Shannon, 僕がわかるかい?
Georgie-san. これは夢なの?
いや、これは夢じゃないよ。だからほら、つねっても冷めないよ。
He didn't receive permission to talk or touch her. As George said that, he softly pinched Shannon's cheek. It was how George had always responded in the past, when Shannon had been surprised by something and had asked if she was dreaming. And Shannon felt the warm touch of George's finger on her cheek. And when George realized that the warmth of the living had already returned to his beloved person's cheek, they both cried. What words should a pair of lovers separated by death celebrate when they are reunited? The words of the human world are not enough. In short, they had no need of the words of this world. George simply hugged Shannon, who was sitting up without talking. Shannon's strength was still feeble, and putting her arms around George's back took all she had. So George hugged her tightly to make up for that. I'm pretty sure we hadn't read earlier that all six were dead. To stop each other from going once more to a place the other's hand couldn't reach, they hugged each other so tightly and yet so gently. As Shannon's fingers curled around George's back, on her ring finger, the engagement ring George had given her definitely shone. That strong glint certainly wasn't just the sparkle of diamond. There definitely was a magical power that only the two lovers could possibly feel. I am just reminded of if you know like Dimension 20, the D&D thing, there is a clip of Brennan DMing asking, remember back at the first day of like magic school, what did I tell you? The most powerful magic is? And one of the players goes, friendship? Friendship? Love's the most powerful magic. No. What, you think people who love each other die all the time? You think just because, you think like during a war, a mother and child get iced? You think that's because they didn't love each other enough? That's stupid, no. Love is love, magic is magic. Chronomancy and all. But yeah. Most powerful magic of all is chronomancy, not love, honestly. This is very much the opposite, but yeah. It was because of that strong light existed that they had been able to find her casket in the land of the dead. Beato understood. That ring, no. The feelings of the pair embodied in that ring were a miracle made real. In that moment, George definitely used magic. Beato had done nothing more than helping them along. That magic had a power that could only reside in those who knew the importance of life, who knew what it meant to try with all one's might. It was the power of a miracle, one that the Endless Witch couldn't possibly know of, a miracle that only the power of the finite could give rise to. Benkastel? By now, she had no choice but to accept it. She had to accept that true magic, true magical power, exists in the place furthest away from she who calls herself the Great Witch.
ベアトリーチェ様。
彼女が君を生き返らせてくれたんだ。ありがとう、ベアトリーチェ。
いや、わらわは何もできなかった。シャノンをよみがえらせたのはそなたの魔力、そなたの魔法、奇跡を成し遂げる後宮の地。確かに見届けさせてもらったぞ。ジョージさんが私を。うん、わらわなど足元にも及ばぬほどの凄まじき魔力であったぞ。わらわなどまだまだ見習いの域を出ぬか。今こそ身の程を知ろうぞ。
Beato staggered backwards. Her physical strength was clearly exhausted. She had humbly said that George's power alone had revived Shannon, but Beato had also used all of her magical and physical strength. As she reflected upon how difficult it was to revive a single life, something she'd been able to play around with however she wanted in the past. The couple kept on embracing each other tightly. By doing that, those feelings that couldn't be communicated with a billion words were shared.
ありがとう、ベアトリーチェ。君は僕たちの恩人だ。
ありがとうございます、ベアトリーチェ様。再びジョージ様に会わせてくださったこのご恩を決して忘れません。
Very different from how you've reacted in the past to talking to Beatrice.
よせよせ。愛し合う二人に感謝されては外道の極みと恐れられたわらわにはくすぐったすぎるというものよ。わらわのことは気にするな。
Okay, so this is also making me think of another Brennan quote from, I think, the same campaign of "A life for life," eh, Mr. Gibbons? Pulls out a gun, shoots like the vice principal or something. "A life for life," shoots himself, and the two other players just wake up. Yeah, I'm feeling like maybe something like that's going to happen, where Beatrice is going to die here in Shannon's place, perhaps to be able to fill the requirements for the sixth and the first Twilight.
存分に再会を祝い合え。
Beato, who was leaning with her back against the wall, slid down the wall and sat. How many centuries had it been since she last grew this tired from using magic? I probably haven't been this tired since the time I first succeeded in magic. Didn't teacher praise me that time? Oh, but didn't I kill that same teacher who praised me? Don't be so naive, Beatrice. Isn't that what killing means?
ようやく魔法の使い方を思い出したようですね。頭ん中酸欠でカラッカラで思い出すもヘチマもねえぜ。それよりあんた殺したじゃねえかよ。現れるんじゃねえよ。あなたが未だに私を生かしていますよ。だからこうして現れられます。もっともあなたの頭を撫でに来たわけでもありませんが、無様なわらわをわざわざ嘲笑いに来たかよ。
No, that's something only you would do.
それに隠居までした魔女が今さら頭なんか撫でられちゃ他。そうですね。一人前どころか現役を退いたと豪語するあなたなのに、今頃になって魔法の使い方を覚えたなど恥ずかしくて誰にも言えませんね。だな。
Maybe she was only tired instead.
内緒にしてくれよ、お師匠様。
Beato gazed at the couple hugging each other with a sense of pleasant despondency.
愛か。勝てね
45データ受領
Oh.
射撃準備完了
Oh.
弾種選定装填
Is both George and Shannon going to die now or something?
410射撃2
The gold snake arrow fired by the Vicious weaved its way through the bushes of the rose garden. Weaved its way through the hedges. Yeah, and climbed the stone steps towards the mansion's entrance. Aiming for the keyhole. Weaved through the corridors. I can half see her going, this is fine too. George was able to get what he wanted. They were able to spend their last moments together. Weaved through the corridors. And flew into the keyhole and the door to the parlour. I guess not then. It happened in an instant. One could hardly blame Beato, who was completely worn out, for not noticing it beforehand. Right before Beato's eyes, the gold snake flew in through the keyhole, surrounded the two lovers, and pierced the two hearts in the blink of the eye. Furthermore, the gold snake faithfully pierced a hole through Shannon's chest once more. The two hearts were pierced by that gold snake. No, by that gold sewing thread of the new brutal witch's furniture. And it had happened in an instant, mocking the amount of effort it had taken to revive Shannon. Before Beato's shocked eyes, the two fell over and landed on the floor.
George, Shannon.
ありがとう、ベアトリーチェ。わずかの間でも会わせてくれてありがとう。
George spent his last breath thanking Beato and died alongside the one he loved. The gold snake, which still sewed the two in place, spun like a large cyclone, revolving around the inside of the parlour. It was searching for further prey in that ring. Then, the tip of the snake met Beato's gaze. In that instant, Beato was prepared to die. At that moment, Virgilia stood in front of her, the fingers of both her hands drawing a seal. Interesting. Instantly, the gold leaf buried the inside of the parlour. It was like a blizzard of gold.
ベアト、今のうちに逃げて。シエスタの黄金球からは誰も逃れられない。
410標的疾患200魔法機マシ45了解索敵変更対人画像追尾方式標的再捕捉410データリンク410データ受領すっとろいに先代様
Which predecessor?
来て来て来て着弾
Prey targeted by the Siesta Sisters' golden bow did not escape. It could not be blocked. No magical barrier could even dream of blocking it without being multi-layered. The gap opened during that instant of confusion caused by Virgilia's deception magic was Beata's only chance to escape. And it was the only chance to make the sisters confuse Virgilia for Beata. As Virgilia spread her arms wide, blocking the way to her beloved disciple, the gold snake pierced straight through her heart. After sneaking in through the keyhole, the snake shot through George, Shannon, and then Virgilia in an instant, completely failing to notice Beata as she used that instant to escape. Interesting. As soon as Virgilia saw that Beata had gotten away, she died. Again. The strength left her body, and like gold dust drifting with the wind, her form was erased. Beata completely erased all traces of her magical power, became gold butterflies and passed through the wall, escaping to the wind and the rain outside. Yep, so this rate, the only one of Eva's family to survive might be Eva to the last 5. After all, who's left? No. Inside. Those 2 are dead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, wait. 1, 2, those 2 are dead. He's also dead now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Huh. Beata felt regret from the bottom of her heart. Why? Because she had been attacked by the new witch? Probably not. Of course, she hated losing her teacher. And even more importantly, Beata was enraged by the barbarism that had boorishly stolen away the reunion between the 2 lovers. Beata had poured out almost all of her magical power to reunite them. Even though the result had been a miracle, the time it took to steal that away had been so ridiculously short. Beata trembled at that barbarous cruelty that had brought about such an abrupt end. Besides, this was the true form of the acts she herself had committed up until this point. So, just as strongly as Beata hated the new witch, she also looked at her previous self with disgust. But now, she had to escape. If she was targeted next, she would probably lose her life. To think that a chess player had descended, thinking they were like a god, only to be attacked by the pieces.
45着弾確認標的資産間違いなく先代様を撃破しました。また私たちの撃墜気象が増えちまうにひ愛し合う二人なんだっけ
They thought they killed the predecessor, but really they killed the predecessor.
引き裂いて一度合わせて二度もう一度引き裂いて三度楽しめるだっけそのついでにあのクソうるさいババアまでさよならできて最高にご機嫌よ。ロノウェイ文句ないわよね。
I'm kind of hoping that at the end of all this, like real Beatrice will, or I guess Witch World Beatrice will just go, alright, well I've had enough of this world, on to the next, and just obliterate this Ever Beatrice, or not even have to obliterate her, just close the world.
ございません。ベアトリーチェ様。
あいつは魔女の碑文の儀式を妨害したのよ。第一の番の生贄を勝手に蘇らせて私の儀式を妨害したわ。文句言われる筋合いなんかなんにもないわよ。しかしずるいなあ。あいつは死体を残さないのね。あのババアも思いっきり何度も無限にいじめ殺して遊んでやろうと思ったのに。
I doubt that would be a possibility to begin with. And on that note, I'll end up there for today. I hope you've all enjoyed. Let me know any feedback you have in the comments. And until next time, see ya.
ジョージが